Hello everyone, welcome to another deck tech for Magic Arena. So, Magic Arena has been out for a little while now in closed beta, and if you're lucky enough to have access, you're probably going to be able to make a decent deck. You're going to have some mythics, you're going to have some rares. So I'm going to go back, I'm going to do a deck that we did before. We're going to take it through one of the brand new, quick constructed queues, and do a little bit of a tournament with it, because I've found this deck to be pretty cheap, even tricked out, and really, really good. We've had an excellent record with it. So that is our blue-white approach deck. And you can see that Dominaria added a couple of things. One of them is very key. Seal Away is absolutely incredible in this deck. It's really, really, really good. So one of the problems that you have is that there's a lot of mono-red decks around, so you need ways to deal with the early game. Settle the Wreckage is excellent and does a good job of helping you stop your opponents from attacking into you and winning the game, but Seal Away is really, really important as well, probably as much or more so. So if you haven't seen this deck before, here's the basic premise. We don't play anything until we do Approach to the Second Sun, and win the game. So we're not playing any creatures at all. We're just trying to cast Approach to the Second Sun. Once you cast one, even if it's countered, the second time that you resolve one, so the first one can be countered, the second one has to actually resolve, so it can't be countered, then you win the game. And we have a bunch of ways to kind of stop our opponents from winning until we can stall and get our Approach to the Second Suns online. And those are the aforementioned Seal Away, which is just an excellent removal spell, deals with even things like Hazard for just 2 mana at instant speed. Super important. We also have Settle the Wreckage to try and exile a whole lot of creatures from your opponent. With there not being a Kaladesh block released on here, you're unable to have Fumigate. So Settle the Wreckage is way more important than pretty much anything else. It's what actually makes the deck tick. Otherwise, you just go overwhelmed by creatures, so it's kind of a board wipe. Your opponents can play around it, but that's why we have the Seal Away, and then as another card to get rid of things, Cast Out. So Cast Out a little bit slower. We end up cycling it away a lot, so I did cut one recently and added in another Teferi instead, but Cast Out's still pretty useful a lot of the time. You have to have it. Seal Away is much, much better, but Cast Out is still definitely necessary. And it's nice to cycle sometimes. Now, the other things that we have is a lot of card draw spells. So we've got Search for Azcanta to try and put things into our graveyard, which will help us dig down to Approach to the Second Sun after we've already gotten rid of one. Or just, you know, before we've seen one at all, it'll turn it on and you can start using it to, as Azcanta the Sunken Ruin, to start searching very, very quickly for it if you happen to go really, really late and not be able to find one. You have Strategic Planning to dig you down really, really quickly. And what's cool about Strategic Planning is it puts the cards into your graveyard, which doesn't sound like a huge advantage, but I actually really, really like Countervailing Winds in this list. So Cancel is a little bit hard to cast being 2 blue, and Countervailing Winds has the option of being able to be cycled, and honestly, with Strategic Planning and all the ways that we have to cycle in this deck, I've found it pretty easy to turn Countervailing Winds into just a cancel very quickly. So I've liked Countervailing Winds a lot. Then we have, of course, Supreme Will, which is another one of kind of the linchpin cards. It's almost as important as Settle the Wreckage, because it's both card draw and it's a counter spell. So you can either counter something for 3, or you can just look at the top 4 cards of your library, keep digging down for Approach. This is one that a lot of other people haven't been using, is Orazca Relic. I've liked it a lot. It lets you ramp out to Approach to the Second Sun a little bit earlier, so you can get like a turn 5 or even a turn 6 or even a turn 5 Approach to the Second Sun. Unlikely, but it can happen. And really late, it can also get you into sacrificing it to gain life, which is important when you're in a race where somebody's trying to kill you quickly. And it can also draw you a card, getting down to your approaches, so that's really important as well. So I've liked Orazca Relic a fair bit, and I do have 3 in there still. There's the Cast Out, which obviously just removal and possible card draw. Settle the Wreckage, like we talked about. And then Hieroglyphic Illumination to draw and cycle as well. Last cards that are here that are really important are Teferi. Teferi has been excellent for me. I only had one before now. I made an extra one today because I wanted to cut out cast outs. I wouldn't recommend running too many. You don't want multiples. They're a little expensive. But if you can land a Teferi on a turn where you know that you don't need a counterspell up, oh man, it just runs away with the game. you can often just draw, like, it's good to cast on 6 a lot of the time, because you get to draw the card and then immediately untap 2 lands and hold up like a Countervailing Winds or Supreme Will, and that's where it really shines, because then it just slowly takes over the game. It's hard for them to remove it, and you can dig down very, very quickly to find approaches or just extra card draw, and it's very easy to win a game when you have a Teferi and play for a couple of turns. So Teferi's nice, and then we also have an alternate win condition aside from Approach of the Second Sun, because occasionally you'll come across other blue counterspell decks, which are kind of the harder ones to beat, because if they know to counter not the first approach, but the second, it can be really hard to fight through it. You really need like 10 mana to hold up a counterspell and Approach of the Second Sun, and a lot of the times when you get that late, a deck that's blue also running counters, they might have multiple negates, so you're going to need like 13 mana and 2 counterspells, or 16 mana. Like, that's just not really feasible. So you have instead Nezahal Primal Tide. And so Nezahal can't be countered, which is really nice in these control mirrors. And then you can also get a lot of different advantages by Nezahal drawing you extra cards whenever they play a non-creature spell. So it's a really important card in control mirrors sometimes. It's a nice little one-of. Other thing that we have is just our mana base, a couple of deserts. There's a few things to mention here. We don't want to run too many because they do come into play tapped, and that is a pretty big disadvantage. But it's nice that they cycle. And the other reason why we have them is because of Ipnu Rivulet. It'd be nice to have a second one. I only have one. I haven't been able to craft a second one yet. I might want to do that. But Ipnu has been really, really powerful because you can get yourself milled to try and draw approach quickly. So basically you play approach and then immediately use Ipnu to essentially draw 4 cards. Then you're right next to an Approach of the Second Sun. You can get it with Strategic Planning or a Supreme Will. Any of those kinds of cards will instantly draw it for you, and you're ready to win the game the next turn. So Ipnu's been really, really sweet that way. We have a Glacial Fortress. Haven't been able to do more of them, or I would definitely have more Glacial Fortresses. I also have 2 Irrigated Farmlands, which are just kind of upgraded deserts for the most part. And then some Meandering Rivers and Arch of Orazca as a one-of, because you end up with this in your collection ready to start. So that's our mana base. We have a lot of lands, 26, but we do have a lot of them that cycle, so we can just kind of keep feeding our hand if we draw too many lands. So you want to make sure that most of the time you you play your regular lands first and don't play these. You want to hold them because I'd say about 50-60% of the time you actually just end up cycling them. They're nice to have, but it's nice to be able to cycle them away as well. It gives you a little bit of flexibility in your mana base. And that's our deck. So let's take it through. We're going to do one of these quick constructed events, which if you haven't seen them before, are a new thing that came into Magic Arena very recently. This is how they're going to be doing kind of like a constructed queue where once you've done your rewards for the day, you can still earn extra gold. Costs 500 to enter, and then you go until you hit 7 wins or 3 losses, and you get gold based on that. If you hit 4 wins, then you gain gold back, essentially, because you gain extra cards. So you get the same amount of gold that you put in, but you also get 3 cards, at least 1 rare and some uncommons. And yeah, so pretty good to get 4 wins. Not too hard to go 4-3, and these are really worthwhile. So we're going to try one and see how it goes.